All right, y'all. Top Billing Brand alternative channel to Top Billing Sports. I'm your man, Murf Baldwin, CEO of Top Billing Sports. And man, I'm here to do my 1-2 thing when it deals with boxing. And if I'm talking boxing, it has to be with one of my best friends, my boxing buddy. That would be one Chris P. Swanson. Me and Swanson have long history. He's the publisher at USC Rival Site, where you guys know that my day job is that of a sports writer slash football analyst. And I work for this man at the USC site. He's one of the best dudes I know in the business. Swanson, what's going on?
Nothing much. Thank you for that introduction. That's very kind of you. I don't know how many people share those feelings with you. So,
Yeah, you do know how to ruffle some feathers out there, man. But
I'm not the kindest on Twitter. So,
no, your Twitter game is very much like Floyd Mayweather's or some of your favorite.
I think I'm the Donald Trump of USC football.
Oh
So,
no. All right, Swanson, man. Coming out of the weekend, we're a little late on this right here, but we got to get it out when we can. Your favorite fighter, I would say, is Manny Pacquiao, and he's one of my favorite
really,
fighters as well. Oh,
yeah.
what? Oh, he's not? Are you
Well,
gonna? What?
I respect him. I'm just, I don't have
Wow.
favorites.
You
You
don't?
know,
Oh, you don't have favorites. You're gonna play that game?
we're playing that game.
Oh, this man is lying his ass off, right? So Triple G is one of his favorites. He hates Canelo. He hates Floyd Mayweather. He loves
Oh my
Manny
gosh.
Pacquiao. So this is
Oh
not
my
football. We
gosh.
can actually be truthful about your feelings.
So I'll say this is that I do root for some people. They're pretty much all the old guys that like I
That
had
are not
rooting
Floyd.
interest. Yeah, I never liked Floyd Mayweather, so I'm not gonna lie. I'm just not a fan of his personality and what he
He
says.
also
But
loves Sergey Kovalev.
yeah, I like Sergey because basically, as I was like in college and stuff, and I'm still kind of a kid, and I would look for people to root for. You know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
all those guys, Kovalev, Golovkin, Manny Pacquiao, they're all guys from that era.
And it's
So I
so
root for the old guys,
and it's
Luis Ortiz.
Leo Ortiz. So it's funny. The converse of those guys' adversaries are all my favorite fighters, right? Andre Ward, uh, Canelo, Floyd Mayweather. So we always have some interesting conversations, and if you ever heard us have football conversation, it gets extremely spirited. Boxing is no different. All right, so coming out of the weekend, man, Manny Pacquiao defeating one Keith sometime Thurman. You were the first person to really call him out about his lack of punching power, and I really couldn't see it. I always thought he was a guy who could really turn over on his punches. I know that he was a really good boxer. I thought he could fight good at distance. He can fight good up close. I don't know. I don't know. It was a tough one on me right there, but I like Manny Pacquiao. I like Keith Thurman. So they made the best man win, and the best man won. And Pacquiao, to me, people saying like he turned back the hands of time. He pretty much looked like he's always looked to me. What did
Yeah.
you think about not about Pacquiao, but about Thurman? Because you came out with some interesting words that I think I'd like to get on.
Okay. Well, I think he might be over the hill. I shot might be a little
Mm,
drastic, because he lost to Manny Pacquiao, but he might be shot. I think Manny Pacquiao, right, is a great fighter, and for his age, it's amazing what he's doing. But he's old, and he every fight he's had since Jeff Horn has been a fight that was somehow put in his favor. This last one was an exception. Going into the Keith Thurman Manny Pacquiao fight, I thought that was a true 50-50 fight. Although I thought it was a true 50-50 fight because Pacquiao is old and I thought Thurman might be shot. Um, I think Thurman is a little bit more over the hill than Pacquiao is at this point, even with the age difference. But it was a good fight. I'm not going to rag on Keith Thurman too much. I think that until he lost to Pacquiao, you could probably argue that he had the best resume at welterweight in recent years, because he beat, Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. But I'm starting to wonder after a couple performances by, Sean Porter, and then looking back to some gifts that Danny Garcia got. Was he really as good as advertised? You mentioned his punching power. I don't think it was there at the elite level. I think he overwhelmed guys that couldn't box with him, and that's where he kind of got this, nickname and this whole idea that, he can take guys out with one punch. I don't think it's there at the elite level. I think Danny Garcia and Sean Porter might be a little bit overrated, and I think that, coming back from injury and 2-year layoff really affected Keith Thurman. So I don't view this as like Manny Pacquiao beat a top 10 pound for pound guy, which I think a lot of people do view it that way because Keith Thurman's undefeated and had big names on his resume. I don't think this was the Keith Thurman from a couple of years ago, and I think that guy might have even been a little bit overrated.
See, I think you kind of salvaged it at the end when you mentioned the 2-year layoff and the injuries. So this is what I like to see. Like, I think if Deontay Wilder would have fought Tyson Fury in his second fight back, I think he probably would have washed Tyson Fury, right? So Tyson Fury did a good thing by he got 3 fights in before Wilder?
I think it was 2. I think it was Safiri, and then I think it was Payada, and then I think he went to Wilder.
So, all right,
he probably should have had some more, honestly.
Probably should have had. And if he would have had more, he probably would have beaten Wilder. So that's my thing right there. You cannot come back from a 2-year layoff with injuries and have one tune-up fight and go against an all-time elite fighter like Manny Pacquiao. Over the hill or not, boxing is still boxing. He still has a boxing brain. And not to mention, he still possesses a great equalizer in a fight, and that's speed. He hadn't lost much of his speed. I was going back looking at some of his old stuff. He may have lost a half a step of speed, but it ain't much. So he still had that. And you're going against, to me, a guy who's probably more in tune with what he is as a boxer right now than Manny Pacquiao. To me, he's like becoming more of a boxer. It's almost like he's aging like fine wine. Like before he was kind of a wild man, I think that's why people liked him. He could very much overwhelm you. But, man, now he's able to take angles and do a lot of the stuff that people laud Lomachenko for doing. And I see that in Pacquiao. So I don't think Thurman – I think Thurman's fine, to be honest with you. I honestly think that maybe if he would have taken one more fight, maybe if he would have fought like an Adrian Broner in this fight and then fought Manny Pacquiao with how close it became at the end – because Thurman was mounting a very serious comeback at the end, even though he was the one that was hurt. It's arguable that fight was a draw, for one. And if somebody wanted to say that Thurman edged it, I may not go there, but at the very least a draw. But with that knockdown, you had to give the nod to Manny. But I think over the last 5 or 6 rounds, Thurman mounted a pretty good comeback and was starting to really feel his groove. I just don't think one fight against Josecito Lopez is enough to where can. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's fine, man. I think if he doesn't take a long break, he's talking about taking the rest of the year off, which is crazy to me. If he were to come back and fight again in November or December, and I think that's the fight for him too. It would be somebody like Adrian Broner, especially if Broner started talking big trash afterwards as well. And I think Thurman would want to take that fight. That'll be a good fight for him. Then I think he could maybe go back to one of the champions. Well, it would have to be Pacquiao. I don't think he wants anything to do with Spence, but we'll get to Spence here in a little bit. But I don't know. I just disagree with that, man. I don't think he's shot by any stretch of the imagination, man.
Yeah, that's fine. I get that, and I think you're right. I think he probably would have done better if he had some more fights. After Josecito Lopez.
And think about this. Not only that, he fought a Manny that's actually been very active.
Yes, but I think what happened is that PBC went to Manny Pacquiao, who is probably their biggest moneymaker now. Mm-hmm. I'm just, he has to be. He has to be. And they said, who do you want to fight? You want to fight a champion? We have all of them. Who do you want to fight? And he said, I want to fight Keith Thurman because, he's been inactive for 2 years and he holds the WBA title. And they went to Keith Thurman and said, you want to fight Manny Pacquiao? And he said, yeah, I want to fight Manny Pacquiao. And Keith Thurman probably thought, even though I haven't been active, this guy's smaller than me, and he's old, and I can beat him. And I just think he was a little bit,
To lend credence to your point right there, Thurman was on the PBC podcast, and he pretty much echoed what you said. He said he thought he may need another fight, but this is when Manny wanted the fight. So I think it was with the caveat that Manny wanted to face him.
No.
Yeah, Manny wanted to face him just coming out the
Yeah.
Josecito Lopez fight. He was thinking probably Manny wouldn't want to fight him if he got another fight under his belt. So, and Manny deserves that right to me to be able to kind of pick and choose right now because he is an older guy and he's a legend in the sport and he's done everything in the sport and he's still fighting at a pretty unique level to where I don't really see anybody outside of Spence that he can't beat. You mentioned Terrence Crawford. So that was going to be his parting present from Top Rank, right? So that was the rumor that your man Bob Arum wanted that bad for Manny Pacquiao, and not to say Pacquiao ducked it, but he wasn't eager to, just like the Spence fight. He wasn't eager to really get in there. Now I do think Terrence Crawford would beat Manny Pacquiao,
Yeah.
but man, I'm not so sure he will wash Manny Pacquiao, man. Not the Pacquiao that fought Thurman. I think over the latter parts of the fight though, it could get a little ugly for him because I think that's the age portion of it right there.
Yeah, I think it's fair to question Terrence Crawford a little bit because even though he has a great resume and he has all these titles, it's kind of like who's his big win, right?
Who is his big win?
I don't even know. I mean, is it Victor Postol? Is that the big
Postol.
win? Is it Julius Ndongo? Which I know isn't, but
maybe Gamboa.
Yeah, and so I get it. I just
Amir,
think that
Amir Khan would have to be his biggest win.
Yeah, maybe
A shot Amir Khan.
Well, and so this is what I think though is that I think he probably is one of the three most talented boxers in the world. That's just my guess. I know that it's not because he doesn't have that win. I get that it's not a super sure thing, right? But I think he probably is on another level, and I think he's faster, stronger, maybe even a better boxer than Manny Pacquiao. I think he'd beat him clearly. I do, and I think Spence would beat Manny Pacquiao pretty clearly too, because I think Spence should probably be a middleweight really and somehow finds a way to be at 147.
Exactly.
And he's an excellent boxer. He's a high class boxer too.
Well rounded, has good defense, everything.
Yeah.
He's a class above, but to me he shouldn't count. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even count him. He's punching in a class that's really not his, in my opinion. And then people say, "Oh, you can make the weight and all this and that." I don't care about that. I have a deep combat sports background, and I know cats who can make the weight, like an Anthony Rumble Johnson in MMA, who ended up fighting at heavyweight and made 170 pounds for years and years, and was just draining himself and beating up on little people. And then he got to 205, and he was knocking everybody out then too. So imagine that.
I just think throughout boxing, we're in this generation now. I think Floyd Mayweather started it, where it's like, hey, you should be smart when you schedule your fights, and you shouldn't just fight everybody and take a huge risk. You know what I mean? And I think that we've seen throughout boxing history that every time you fight a guy like Spence, you know what I mean? It's like he's much bigger than you. I can also box like that. There's like a 90% chance you're going to regret that fight if you're, a high-end superstar. I mean, like, I think of like Shane Mosley's career and what he would have. I mean, obviously he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and everybody thinks he's a great fighter, and he was number one pound for pound, yada yada yada, whatever, multi-division champion. But no, what I'm saying is he had 4 losses to Vernon Forrest and Winky Wright, who Vernon Forrest is like this kind of the same thing as Spence, where it's like, why was he at welterweight? If you look back on it, he was way bigger than everybody else. And Winky Wright too, I think ended up fighting Roy Jones at 175 at some point. So it's like, why, and he was at 154 his whole career. So it's like, why, if Shane Mosley didn't have those 4 losses, right, he would have been on this like longer run of, top pound for pound guy. And I just think, like, why do you fight that guy, right? Why would Manny Pacquiao fight Errol Spence, right? It's like that's
thank you. I said the same thing.
Not going to end well for him.
It's not going to end well.
And Pacquiao's a small welterweight.
That's what obviously. I'm saying. Pacquiao should be at 140 pounds. What's funny? Everybody's giving Spence a lot of props, right? So I know this is going to be not a popular opinion because he's a very popular fighter. Well, I do think he's great, and I'm not really going to think he's that great until he fights at the very least at 154. And he probably will top out at 160 pounds because everybody who's somebody at 147 seems like a 140-pound fighter to me, or they actually came from 140. Even a guy like Sean Porter, while he fought at a higher weight before, his frame, to me, it's all about your reach. That's one of the most important parts of boxing. Not necessarily your frame, but your reach. He's a smaller guy. If you see the pictures with Spence and Porter when they're doing these face-off and they're up at PBC show on Fox and stuff like that, it's a discernible difference, man. It's just ridiculous. So imagine Spence against Danny Garcia, who fought at 140. You know, Keith Thurman's not the biggest welterweight I've ever seen, and we know Manny Pacquiao. It could probably fight even lower than 140 if you really.
I think you fight 135.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Yeah. For sure. So that's like that. Maybe a guy like Ugas, I think, is a little bigger than some people, but everybody who's the tops at 147 that's made a name for themselves right now, to me, are smaller fighters. So how much credit am I going to give Spence? The Kell Brook bludgeoning, at least for the most part, I actually thought Kell Brook was really giving it to him a little bit too, but Kell Brook had to have been shot by then because he came off getting molested and by Triple G. Like, you got him right after Triple. I would have liked to see him before Triple G, but even the Kell Brook at 147, I think he's too big for 147, and he was kind of draining himself, to whereas Spence getting him after Triple G, and I don't know. So to me, he doesn't really have that. And then Mikey, like a guy like Mikey, you see Mikey wants to stick around 147 for some odd reason. He's another guy that should be more at a 135 or 140. So all these guys are just smaller than him, man. I'm not sure why he's so reluctant to. I guess he has the belt, so, but yeah, I guess he wants to clean house and then go up. It doesn't matter to me. Nobody's going to give you that much credit until you go up and you fight these guys at 154, man. All those guys are Erickson, Lubin, and Spencer, the same exact size. Those are the guys he should be fighting. And Tony Harrison and J-Rock. Even Charlo, I know that's his friend or whatever like that, but those guys are very similarly sized. Or then fight a bigger guy in the weight class that is more like him, like a Jared Hurd.
I think it comes down to the welterweight is a bigger money division than 154. And he's in a situation where almost every titleist is under the same promotional banner as him. So why not? You know, he can make the weight. Why not win all those titles first? You
would say that you think like Porter and Thurman and Garcia are bigger stars than like a Charlo, Hurd, and those guys?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
160 though, it's a different story, right?
Yeah, because Canelo's there.
And Triple G?
And Golovkin. I mean, I don't know how much of a. I know Golovkin's a bigger star than anybody at welterweight outside of Manny Pacquiao, but I don't know how much it is. You know what I mean?
Why do you think those guys are such big stars? You've questioned quite a few times if any of those guys are even very good.
Well, I've kind of come to learn that I question that about almost every division in boxing now.
That is true.
But I think what it is that. First of all, welterweight's one of the 8 traditional divisions, so I think that plays into it. I think that you get people that are like, "Oh, welterweight championship," right? I think that the Premier Boxing Championship promotion of these guys has been great because what they've done basically is outside of that WBO title, they had all the titles, and they had these guys build their records, and then they eventually, they fought each other, and I guess Thurman but they kind of played it out well, where they stretched these records out. They built up their names. They're on Showtime. They're on Fox. Then they have media opportunities on CBS as well, and I think that they're just well-known guys, and I think that it's like common knowledge amongst boxing fans, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, that the welterweight division is good. I just think that that's the narrative that's been presented. Look at how deep this division is. There's 4 different champions. They're all undefeated, on and on and on.
You think it's got to do with the nostalgia of guys previously with the big 4 back in the day?
I think welterweight's always been, one of the more talented divisions. I think that people think the tradition's continuing, and they're interested to see, hey, like, who's going to emerge as the guy, right? And 154, that you don't. you don't feel the same way about those champions. I mean, like Charlo losing kind of changed the dynamic of it a little bit, and I guess Hurd losing too as well. But if you look at what's going on at 154, right, and I think there's talent there, but Tony Harrison has 2 losses, and he got knocked out pretty badly. Lubin got knocked out, but even the champions, Munguia looks completely vulnerable. Charlo is vulnerable now because he had a close fight with Tony Harrison that could have gone either way, and it went against him. Hurd kind of seems like he can't box because J. Rock Williams outboxed him, beat him pretty clearly, and that's another guy that has some losses on his record.
One loss, one bludgeoning, but
and he got knocked out.
Yes, cold.
And Arislandi Lara seems old now. And then but there some of the younger guys. It's a good division. I'm just saying
actually put that division over 147 with the depth of it and the fire. Even though these guys like Garcia has lost, Thurman now has a loss, Porter has a couple of losses.
I agree with you, but
Pacquiao
I think that
has how many losses?
He has 7, but he has like 60 something wins too. So
yeah, no doubt about that. But I'm just saying. So if we're just going by the loss theory, but I don't know, those 154.
Okay,
guys,
but there's 2 guys at the top that seem invincible, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Seem like nobody's going to beat Spence and nobody's going to beat Crawford unless they fight each other. At least that's what people think. And I think at 154,
you had that with Hurd and
each other.
Well, you had that with Hurd and Charlo, so they happen to actually fight each other. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
But this sentiment was going on way before those 2 gentlemen lost, and they both just recently lost, really, in their last fights.
Crawford and Spence are just bigger stars than them. I mean, Crawford, I think for very obvious reasons, right? Because now he's a 3-division champ. He was an undisputed champ at 140. Right.
Well, you know what? I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think Crawford and these guys are that household names. I think they're big stars within the boxing community. None of those guys are like a Wilder or somebody or a Pacquiao. And I think within the
universally viewed as better than those 2, and that's always been the case, right?
What better than the rest of the? Because at one point in time, people were really championing Hurd and really championing Spence. I mean, really championing Charlo, especially Charlo.
But you would say that Crawford has always been universally recognized as being better than them, right? I mean, that's
what I'm saying. He's boxing, like boxing famous.
But that's okay. That's what I'm saying. That's why welterweight's viewed as the better division, is because it's. But
he just recently came up to it. He has 3 fights at welterweight.
I get it, but he went there, right? And then before he was there, you had how many undefeated champions at welterweight at one point? Was it 3?
Yeah.
Right? Was it? Because I mean, it was Thurman, and then Garcia, I think, had the WBC, and he was undefeated. Kell Brook had the IBF, and he was undefeated. So I think before Crawford moved up there, it was like, look at welterweight. Like, there's all these undefeated champions. So
I got you.
I just think that I'm not saying it's necessarily true. I just think that that's the perception.
Okay, yeah, I can see why he would. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I guess I can see that from Spence's point of view, but I still think he would be a pretty big star at 154 with those guys. He would be in, to me, more exciting fights.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they had to bring up Mikey Garcia from 2 or 3 weight classes below to fight him. And we're going to look back on that as like that was one of the dumbest things ever. I remember you kept saying it was not going to happen. I was like, man, I'm telling you, this is what Mikey's. You could tell the way Mikey was talking. He wanted to dare to be great. Now I think he may have ruined his own career.
I think he looked at all of his options too.
No, he looked at all your text messages to me where you were saying that you were questioning his resume and all this. Well,
think about this, okay? What are his options? And it's like, okay, he could fight Lomachenko, and I would think would be favored to lose that fight. I shouldn't say favored. He'd be the underdog in that fight, right? He could fight one of these guys at 140 who don't have a name and are extremely talented. Like, what does he get from fighting Prograis, right? If he knocks him out, everybody goes, "Oh, he should have," which I don't think is fair, but I think that's what everybody would say.
Yeah.
And then if he loses, it's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he lost," right?
Yep.
And that's probably a 50-50 fight.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
he could
definitely.
fight Spence, and he probably thought, "Yeah, this guy's way bigger than me, but I'll outbox him." That's what I think he thought. And I think it was a miscalculation. And so, I'm serious because,
I know.
right? Wasn't that the question going
Well,
into that fight?
I'm laughing because it's so damn true. It was such a
Yeah.
miscalculation.
Yeah.
Such a
But
miscalculation.
that was the thought going into the fight, right? Was because we would even talk about it too. And even though we both thought Errol Spence was going to win, it was like, but Mikey Garcia might be a better boxer than him. And maybe he'll outbox him, you know? And but it didn't happen. So
Not even close.
and I honestly I don't think there's any gain for that guy to fight Lomachenko. I really don't, and so I think he's avoiding that fight. I do.
That's a tough way to avoid a fight by going
I get
fight
it.
a freaking
I get
boogeyman
it.
that ruins
And
your career.
I respect him for moving up and fighting
What?
Spence. I do, but
Respect
I
and
just
Michael
don't think
Garcia in the same breath.
he fought Errol Spence, so I respect him. But I mean, the guy does have a history of having titles without determining who the best guy in the weight class is, which always bothers me. Which always makes me feel like, oh, he constantly moves up in weight to just fight some guy he knows he'll beat. And then he's like, oh, I'm a 5-time champion or what. I don't know what he is now. It's probably like 4. Huh.
So
So.
you would think that Mikey fought the best guy in each division of all 8 weight classes that he got a belt from?
I just think if you look,
Pacquiao?
I don't think that it was always determined, right? Especially in the lower ones. I don't think that I doubt he was like the lineal flyweight champion or whatever. Maybe he was. But I can't criticize him for that now after everyone he's fought, right? It's a little bit different, and he's fought he's fought a lot of the top guys at welterweight too, even at his older age. But I just think if you look at Mikey Garcia's history, I mean, look at 135. He didn't fight Jorge Linares or Vasily Lomachenko, and they fought each other, right?
Yeah.
Who's avoiding who, right? Like maybe I'm wrong. All right, I don't have inside information, but my guess is that if Jorge Linares and Vasily Lomachenko were willing to fight each other, and they both said they were willing to fight Mikey Garcia, and Mikey Garcia didn't fight either one of them, I think Garcia avoided those 2 fights. I don't blame him for it, but I think that's what happened. So,
Man, that's kind of tough on me, man. When you avoid those guys, but then you fight a guy that nobody wants to fight. Nobody wants to fight this guy.
I think he thought it was a no lose situation, and that's what everybody said before he fought Errol Spence. They said, like, this is a no win situation for Errol Spence because if he kills him, everybody will go, oh, you should have killed him. He's a lightweight, and if he doesn't, he'll look bad. And Mikey can't look bad. But what happened is Mikey Garcia lost every round and was outclassed,
Yes.
and so it did end up looking bad. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I think that people thought. It'll be a close boxing match, and then Spence will wear him down, and he'll stop him, or Garcia will, the pressure will make him crack, and he'll lose the second half of the fight, or something like that. I think that's what most people thought. So it was a miscalculation. That's what happened.
So with that being said, I see why now he's still wanting to stick around at 47. You said it's the glamour division, and does he have any chance to be a player at welterweight?
I think when I don't think he obviously can't beat Spence, so Spence will have to move up for him to be really one of the top guys.
All right, let's do this. I gotta exercise for you. Suppose there's
Okay.
no Spence in this division anymore. And it's just a reshuffle the deck. All the belts are up for grabs. Spence has finally moved up to 175, where he needs to be. Who comes out on top? Give me a couple of champions.
It's going to be Crawford, right? And
I don't
then
know. I don't know about this,
you
man.
don't
To be
know,
man beating
really.
up Julius Ndongo and all these guys, like it's a big difference, man. You
But
go in
what
and fight even a Danny Garcia or even a Sean Porter and these guys. I love Crawford, man, but he's built his reputation off of beating nobody.
I get it, and I agree, but I think that there's okay. I think there's a couple things going for him. Is one, I think because every respected boxing journalist, right, believes he's one of the three best pound for pound fighters,
And these
and he's
boxing
that
people are more
good.
sheeple than the people in our normal business, bro. Straight
I'm just
sheeple.
I'm just saying I think that there's chance that he's on a different level than these guys, and almost all of his fights, he's been on a different level than the guy he's fought.
He has, man, but I saw something in this fight with Jose Benavidez, and that wasn't something. That was somebody you thought he would have washed out because
Yeah.
especially this version of him after being shot or whatever happened to him, he was very competitive with Terrence Crawford. You can just tell it was because of his size and everything. Some of these guys, while they're not the biggest welterweight guys, some of these guys aren't going to have a real decent size advantage over him. So beating up on Jeff Horn and
Well, Jeff Horn did move up to middleweight, though.
that is true. He's a
So
Spence. He's like a
so
Spence.
that's something that I think is in favor of Crawford when we bring up that Jeff Horn win because he beat up Jeff Horn and then stopped him. Okay, is Jeff Horn's a huge welterweight and he couldn't bully Crawford around. He couldn't do anything like that.
He also can't. He's not good.
Jeff Horn's not good.
Jeff Horn is not good. I wish he'd fight Manny now. I wonder if Manny
No,
was even like interested in that fight.
but that fight was so much closer than the Crawford Horn fight. Even though I thought Manny Pacquiao won it, it went to decision, and I thought it was like
Do you
116,
think
112.
you think he would have beat Manny Pacquiao that fought Thurman?
Horn?
Yeah.
No, because I mean, I wouldn't pick him to beat Manny Pacquiao because I didn't think he beat Manny Pacquiao the first time.
Well, it's
So,
debatable. So to me, it was a very close fight. It could have gone either way. I could, but
But
I don't
that's
think
the
it would be
point.
debatable if he fought Manny now. I think Manny just kind of fought down to the competition at the time. I don't not know sure what was going on with the top ranked. He's revitalized that with the PBC.
He's also since then, outside of Thurman, fought guys that were completely made for him and like total, just like easy.
Once Matisse wakes up, he resents that.
Okay, Matisse, okay, is a perfect example. That's a come forward brawler that's probably Manny's size or maybe even.
Oh yeah. What about me then, man? What about Adrian, the problem Broner,
Adrian
man?
Broner hasn't. If Adrian Broner didn't get gift decisions, I'm not sure he would have won a fight since like 2015. I'm serious. Like since 2015, it's been like three
Damn.
consecutive years of like, hey, like that was a gift or like that was a draw that I think he probably could have lost or like, oh, he got wiped out by two guys that are just clearly better than him. So
Man.
yeah. I mean, it's just it's made up. That's my point. I'm not saying Manny Pacquiao is bad or anything, but Matisse was a joke. I mean, Matisse was losing to the Tara Karam guy from Thailand. He was losing that fight. If you go back and watch it, Matisse was losing that fight and hit him and won. And it's like he was supposed to beat Pacquiao. You know what I mean? Like, no way. No way. His other fight at welterweight, he fought a guy that moved up from 140 to welterweight to fight him. Like it was a joke. Like it was like Matisse was brought along, was given that WBA title so Pacquiao could win it. That's what happened. And then Broner, it was like, who can we put on pay-per-view with Pacquiao who won't beat him?
Hey man, put me on it, man.
Adrian Broner. It's perfect because people for some reason still talk themselves into him being good. I
am good.
And, yeah.
What you talking about, man? It's Jamaicans and Dominicans.
Oh my gosh.
All right, man. So one thing that we have to give Mikey credit for now that I think about it is the Sergey Lipinets win. Now Sergey Lipinets going to 147. I think I don't know, man. I don't know. That might be a fight like a Keith Thurman could have taken in the interim before he fought Manny Pacquiao that would have
Yeah.
kind of warmed him up right there. But that's a pretty good win to me for Mikey, a bigger fighter. I guess that's probably why he thought he could compete with Errol Spence. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. But going back to your question about who would the champion be outside of Terrence Crawford, because I voted for him. I think it's Ugas. I do.
Wow. Hell no.
I think he's up there.
He can't beat Sean Porter.
Well, he already did.
He did not beat Sean Porter.
That should be a rematch at least. That should be a rematch at least.
He got outboxed by Sean Porter, who doesn't even box.
I think
he
a
didn't
lot of
even
people
brawl.
disagree with you.
He didn't even brawl, and he still beat him.
Okay, they should have a rematch at least. So, and
well,
then
after he gets bludgeoned by Spence, his career's going down. Then Ugas will beat him.
I'm shocked that Sean Porter took the Errol Spence fight.
He had no choice.
No idea.
This man is a boogeyman. He done sat there and just waited for everybody like a boogeyman. And Thurman got Pacquiao could have picked. Pacquiao was clearly picking between Thurman and Porter. And I think he made the best choice.
I think so too.
Yeah, so that left he can't fight Garcia. He has to fight Spence. That was the only person left from the fight. He got his mandatory out the way. I don't know. He needs to slip on a banana peel or something. Pull a hamstring.
I have no idea how Porter thinks he's going to win. I just don't. I don't see any possible route to victory for him. I just don't.
I can kind of see him, maybe the bully type. We've never seen anybody try to bully Spence like that has that type of athleticism. A lot of people are already beat before they even get in there. Maybe rough it up, make it a little. He definitely doesn't want to try the Ugas stand on the outside thing.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to try to box from distance with Errol Spence. So he's going to have to try to get into his body and rough him up and try to see if giving him just a different look than he's seen.
Do you think he wins that fight on the inside? No. Right, there's no way. There's just no way. He's going to lose on the outside, he's going to lose on the inside. I
see Spence as being as good as a prime Kell Brook right now, right? A prime Kell Brook to me, man, he was like the next guy. He took a stupid fight like Mikey Garcia, and now his career is over. But a prime Kell Brook, and I thought Porter was decently competitive with Kell Brook, man.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think he was as good as Kell Brook. So
not at all.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
He's too small. He's too small.
I
I'd love to see all of these guys then go back to 140 and be with Prograis and these guys like that and really. But I don't know. They're just too with Spence in the division. He just makes him. He's just too big. But the rest of those guys are all each other's size. Even Crawford.
Yeah, I just think it's the sign of a weak division when everybody's willing to jump into it when they can make a lower weight.
Or it's a sign of a glamour division, like you said, right?
Well, it is. It's a traditional glamour division. I get that, but it's like if there were 4 Spence-sized guys or something, I don't think all these guys would be heading up there, to welterweight to fight them. So,
got you. All right, so moving on past that, you told me
the heavyweights, man.
Yeah, you told me, man. You broke the news for me about Dillian Whyte. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, so there's a report out that he, and multiple reports now, I should say. It's originally reported by BoxingScene.com that
now look at that. See, nobody does that besides us in this industry because we're actual professionals from another industry and we learn how to source and everything like that. So way different.
Yeah, if I'm not gonna pretend like I broke it,
everybody else in boxing media does if you consume boxing media.
It doesn't surprise me. It seems to be a regular thing. But Dillian Whyte apparently failed his A sample of a UCOD test before the Oscar Rivas fight. The fight obviously went on, and Dillian Whyte protested and was waiting for his B sample test to come back, I guess, before we can actually say for sure he did. That he failed and he'll face the penalty, but it doesn't look good for him because that, B sample tests usually don't overturn A sample tests. I can't even remember that happening in recent years, at all. So he's facing a lot of trouble because the British Board of Boxing Commissions, they're very strict about failed drug tests. He's previously failed a drug test. He served a 2-year ban for failing a drug test back in 2012. Yeah. He also, the guy that he fought that he failed the drug test for back in 2012 was also had 3 wins and 25 losses. So Dillian Whyte really is doing this. It's kind of like, wow, you're insecure, dude. But I mean, he could be facing the end of his career in England. At least I'm assuming, not completely sure, but I'm assuming he could fight somewhere else, right? Because I remember Tyson Lewis back in the day, right? Nevada wouldn't grant Mike Tyson a license after the infamous press conference where he bit Lennox Lewis's leg and, called a reporter,
Look at you, man, a little white pussy. Like a little white pussy. Scared. You scared. You scared of a real man.
Yeah, that press conference. Nevada wouldn't grant him a license, and a bunch of other states wouldn't. I don't think California would. I don't think New York would. But he ended up fighting in Tennessee. So Memphis, Tennessee. That's where that fight was.
Oh yeah, Memphis. It's funny when you say just regular Tennessee. I'm like, what the
you
hell?
Don't think of Memphis.
But when you say Memphis, I was like, oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it was in Memphis. So I'm assuming that Dillian Whyte, even if the British Boxing Board of Commissions bans him, and I've heard numbers out like 4 years, 8 years, like Jesus. we're talking like the end of his career in England. I assume he can fight somewhere else though. So I think what it is for him now, because let's say he fails, that win against Oscar Rivas is going to turn into a no contest. I'm assuming because that's what almost always happens, except if your name's David Price. And
shout out to David Price too for beating up on David Allen.
I loved every second of it. I'm not gonna lie. And then Dillian Whyte will lose his mandatory status against Deontay Wilder, right? If that happens, because he can't win the mandatory or the interim title, I guess it was, in a no contest. So I guess what you're looking at is, he's not fighting in England anymore, which is a huge blow to him. He's not fighting Deontay Wilder, which is a huge blow to him. But that being said, there's big fights out there for him. He could go to Russia and fight Alexander Povetkin, right? And that, to me, I think that's a pretty damn big fight. I think that if that's in Russia, that's probably that's a super fight, right? That's like
they better have stringent drug testing or just throw away drug testing,
or they just don't care.
Yeah, just don't care. Russia. Yeah, free for all.
I think he could go to Germany and fight Manuel Char.
Ooh.
I think that would be a huge fight for a WBA title, so he could get back in a mandatory position, even though I guess it'd be weird for him and Anthony Joshua to not fight in England, right? But I guess that's what we're looking at.
I'm fighting Zaire.
Yeah, and then, he could go to the United States, fight Kaunacki or Jarrell Miller.
He could just join the PBC if that's the case. But I don't know, man. That to me doesn't. I don't know. If that was the case, then why didn't Jarrell Miller? I guess you're saying if it was a 4-year type ban from British boxing.
Yeah, from British. So
okay.
Jarrell Miller doesn't face that because he's not very strict with the failed drug tests in England, which is good. I mean, they should be. We don't want people using performance-enhancing drugs in boxing. But yeah, Jarrell Miller, I think Jarrell Miller was already in consideration for the Tyson Fury fight, which I think right now Tyson Fury's next fight is looking like it's going to be Charles Martin. So that's the latest there.
He just needs to stay busy. He just needs. I don't care. He just needs to stay busy and not mess up the Wilder fight. So.
Well, what if Luis Ortiz messes up the Wilder fight?
He needs to not mess it up. If Wilder messes it up, it's all good.
He might. I think Luis Ortiz might win that fight. I have this sneaking suspicion that might happen.
I don't know. I think he might get put out in 3 this time.
He could get knocked. Like he got knocked out the last time. He might get knocked out. He might get knocked out earlier because he's old and he's southpaw and he's susceptible to the right hand. On and on and on. But I just feel like Wilder's brain isn't. We talked about this in Anthony Joshua.
Where you go with this?
No, we talked about this when Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz, right? And we said to each other, "Hey, didn't you see that coming?" Like, we obviously didn't pick Andy Ruiz to win that fight. But it's like, didn't you see this coming? Because like Deontay Wilder, all he does is talk about Anthony Joshua, and all Anthony Joshua does is talk about Deontay Wilder, and they both
Hmm.
talk about Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury talks about them. All three of those guys just talk about each other, and it just seems like they're not focused on the guy in front of them, right? I guess with Dominic Brazil it didn't matter because he got, he punched him in the first round and it was fine. But I just feel like there's a good chance that he goes into the Luis Ortiz fight being like, this guy's old. This guy will get hit eventually. And Luis Ortiz made it to the 10th round, and he won every round in that fight that he didn't get knocked down. And I don't care what the scorecard said. I think anybody would agree with
I'm
that.
still trying to figure out how the hell is Luis Ortiz getting 2 fights with Wilder before Dillian Whyte got one.
Because Luis Ortiz is the better fighter.
Yeah, but I'm just saying from a practicality standpoint, like,
I Hey, I don't even know why Deontay Wilder fought him. I have props to him for fighting Luis Ortiz.
oh, the first
Honestly.
time I can see, but the second time it should have been White. Man, White seems like he's been the mandatory for like 15 years.
So
He had to
he
roid out to
so he's the
buy
no
this
so
time.
this is how dumb boxing is and all these ABC titles. He was the number one contender, but in the WBC silver champion, but he wasn't actually the mandatory. He got ordered to
What?
fight Luis Ortiz to become the mandatory, and he
Oh,
didn't take it. Dominic Dominic Brazil. I have to go back and look at the whole history. But basically, Dominic Brazil ended up being the mandatory because he was supposed to fight, if I remember correctly, he was supposed to fight Luis Ortiz to determine the mandatory. Then Wilder ended up fighting Luis Ortiz, so Brazil just became the mandatory. Um, and the other thing to point out too is I don't feel bad for White. And not even on the drug test subject, but because not only did he not fight Luis Ortiz to determine that mandatory, the IBF ordered a fight between him and Kubrat Pulev for the IBF mandatory, and he didn't take that fight. And he was the front runner for Anthony Joshua's fight in
oh
June, which
yeah.
was originally supposed to be in April, and he couldn't come to a deal with them. So to me, it looks like he turned down two opportunities to become a mandatory challenger if he just fought two guys. And he passed up the rematch with Anthony Joshua.
Which
So I
would have
just
been
don't
a
feel
title
bad.
shot.
Yeah. I just don't feel bad for him. I just don't because it just seems like, oh, like you've turned down some chances. So how am I supposed to feel bad for you being the number one contender in the WBC silver champ? And honestly, I don't even understand the strategy because I guess he thinks he'll beat Wilder and then he can demand more money from Anthony Joshua. At the time, Anthony Joshua. I guess that was the thought. He thought, I'll get the fourth title, and then he'll have to give me more. But if you're the mandatory, you're getting like a 35 or 25% split on a purse bid to fight Wilder. Like, what could the deal with Joshua have been? You would think that Joshua would have been more money than that, you know? And then he could demand a bigger split from Wilder, assuming he beat Joshua. So I don't get it. I don't get what the strategy was there because I don't understand why his end goal, when like the rematch with Joshua was being talked about so much and they were in negotiations and he turned it down, why was his end goal getting 25 or 35% of a split with Deontay Wilder?
I have no idea
Right?
why he was so hard on about this WBC stuff. If the
I don't get it.
IBF was offering them opportunities and stuff, I don't know. It's just weird. Who's guiding his career over there?
Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, but that
So
seems weird because Eddie Hearn's also guiding Anthony Joshua's career. Like he needed to have his own guy or something. I don't know. He was getting bad advice. Put it that way. Now look at him. I'm
yeah.
super interested to see where this goes because I'll be honest with you. Out of all of these heavyweights, he may have the best resume. I remember you were clowning him like
So
a while ago. But if you really look at it now, man, he put together some stuff, man. It's pretty
so
good.
I see. I go back and forth on this because
Man, the Lucas Brown's good. Or Rivas, man, he's to me
okay,
very much a live dog, like an
Luke.
Andy Ruiz type guy. Two
So
Derek Chisora fights.
okay. So in the second Derek Chisora fight, he was
And he was
behind
losing,
on.
no doubt, but he won.
he knocked the guy out in the 11th round, and he was losing on all three scorecards. And that's a guy that has 9 losses. Okay, so he won, and it was a vicious knockout, but that's not an example of him, potentially being a great heavyweight. Right? The Oscar Rivas fight, he was knocked down, and he probably lost 4 rounds. And he was on.
Can fight, man. You're not supposed to just dominate everybody, are you?
I get it, but it's like that. Okay, it's like that.
He beat
Joseph
Joseph Parker too.
Okay, is Joseph Parker good?
Man, at the time, be honest with yourself. Before he fought Anthony Joshua, we were looking at Joseph Parker like, oh, okay. Joseph Parker may give Anthony Joshua a little bit of trouble, and he was one of the first guys to survive off Anthony Joshua. Kind of put a little hole, and it was like we could see a path to victory if somebody was just a little bit better.
He probably lost 9 rounds though.
That's hey.
And then Dillian Whyte fight was life and death, 114, 113 because of a questionable knockdown, and Dillian Whyte got knocked down late in the fight. And Lucas Brown lost to Dave Allen. Got knocked out by Dave Allen. He also
died. We've never seen him again. He may have died. Well, I don't know. It's probably not good to joke about right about now.
No, definitely not with 2 deaths in boxing this week. So
yeah.
We're going to make a note on that one. Yeah, so I just questioned Dillian Whyte's resume because, he's fought some names, but it's been life and death.
Well, then who has the best resume if it's not him? I guess it would.
In all of heavyweights? For all of the heavyweights?
All the heavyweights.
It's Tyson Fury.
All right, so he's the man who beat the man, and then what? Then who did he beat?
He beat Vladimir Klitschko when it was like, oh, Klitschko can't lose. I get that he was older, right? But he wasn't in his 40s yet, and it was like no one will beat Klitschko. So that's the best win anybody has. And then I know he fought to a draw with Deontay Wilder, but most everyone thinks he beat Deontay Wilder, right? So you have to say it's him.
I don't know. I don't know. I think beating Luis Ortiz, I think that's super underrated.
That is.
I think Luis Ortiz could very much beat Fury, Joshua, and all these guys. I
think Fury Ortiz is the best fight that can be made in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, it would be freaking awesome.
Well, because Fury won't knock out Ortiz, right? Because he might, but he doesn't have that like Deontay Wilder power where it's like, oh, like if he hits him once, like he'll probably knock him out, right? So there's not that factor, and then they're like very comparable boxing skill wise. Because again, right, I thought Tyson Fury won every round against Deontay Wilder they didn't get knocked down in. I thought Luis Ortiz won every round against Deontay Wilder he didn't get knocked down in. I think that's like a 50-50 fight. I'd love to see that fight.
I don't know about Tyson Fury winning every round. Because he would have got knocked down a couple of times. If you won every round, then you would still win handedly.
Yeah, I 10 rounds to 2 in that fight.
Oh, my God.
No, I mean, seriously, but with 2 knockdowns, right, that becomes 116-110.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretending like you didn't say that. All right, so, so...
You think it was closer than that?
Yeah, it was closer than that.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was closer than that. But this is coming from the guy who told you that Fury was going to win.
Yeah, I thought that fight was totally 50-50 going in. I thought if they were fighting in 2015, I would have picked Wilder to win. I would have picked Fury to win easily, outbox him. But I thought that the time they were fighting, it's like, oh, Wilder might hit him and knock him out. So I didn't know.
But here's the thing: them fighting next year. If I'm Wilder, I would have tried to get back to that fight as quick as possible because I think Fury's just going to continue to get his sea legs back under him, and I think he's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I still don't know who to pick.
Hand.
I still don't know who to pick though, because honestly, right? The first fight proved just everything that we thought. It's like, oh, Fury will win almost every round that he doesn't get devastated in by a punch, but Wilder could knock him out with one punch. So It's the exact same thing going in. I don't know who to pick. Again, I have no idea. So,
Yep.
so
All
that's a
right.
good fight.
I
They
want
both destroy Anthony Joshua though,
my pick
and
for
Andy
my
Ruiz.
pick to come out of everybody. It might be a hipster pick or whatever like that, but my man Alexander, you know what I'm talking about?
Usyk,
Yeah, Mr. Usyk. When he finally gets around, who was his first fight going to be before he got injured?
Carlos Takam.
See, that would have been no. Well, I don't know. I wish you'd pick somebody bigger than Takam. Like I guess that's a good
Well,
way to
that's the
ease
point.
yourself.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah,
Um,
not bigger. I
I
meant bigger, just frame wise.
no, I get it,
Yeah.
but I think he's trying to, put his big toe in the bathtub first. I think that's the idea. I'm not sold on Usyk either.
What?
Not
You're not sold on
so.
Usyk, but you're sold on Terrence Crawford.
Oh yeah, see, yeah, I knew you were gonna bring that up. I think that Usyk proved that he was the best fighter in a division that's not that good, which is cruiserweight.
Okay, and 140
So
is
no, it's
Julius
but
Ndangu was the champ, and he
at
was like
least
the Errol Spence of that division.
so.
He was the boogeyman of 140.
But
Ndangu.
but Crawford is a 3 division champ, and I don't even want to make this an Usyk versus Crawford thing. I just want to explain why I'm not sold on Usyk. His best win
Bellew?
was basically a draw against Marius Briedis, right? That fight
That was not his best win. His best win was the finals of the World Boxing Super Series, wasn't it?
well because he beat that guy up, but that guy's not as good as Briedis is.
Man, I think that guy's gonna be a factor at heavyweight too. I think he has some boxing skills, man. Usyk
Gassiev?
versus Marcin Gassiev.
I'm just telling you that okay, the way I looked at it is everybody might say, "Oh yeah, he killed Gassiev, so this guy's so good." But the fight
I don't
before
think he
that
killed
was
Gassiev though.
he did quite the number on him, I would say.
Gassiev was pretty competitive.
But the Briedis fight was basically a draw. That was so close. Like that was like I mean, it was a majority decision and the two scores for Usyk was 115, 113. So I'm like, "Oh, that's a red flag." And then I know everybody will say, "Oh, well, maybe Briedis is really good because that's his only loss." But he fought this Noel Glover guy, some random last minute replacement in the World Boxing Super Series, and everybody thinks he lost that fight. He got a gift decision. So I'm looking at cruiserweight like that's not a good division. And
It's not, man. But you're bringing those boxing skills up to heavyweight, where, man, to me, if you're a really good boxer at heavyweight, you have a chance. Even a guy like Dillian Whyte, if you really look at it, I saw in that Oscar Rivas fight, you can just see Dillian Whyte's boxing skills start to take shape for him, right? And he's not that good of a boxer.
No,
And we know Tyson Fury's a hell of a boxer, and Luis Ortiz, and to me, that's the reason why they're up there. Even though
I agree.
both of them have some flaws, but they're good boxers. I think Usyk, man, if size is not a factor, we have to really see how big he is. What is he, like 6'3"?
Yeah.
So
And
that could
he
be a
was
bit of an
fighting
issue.
at 200 pounds. I mean, I
He was
think
cutting down to 200 pounds, clearly, though.
I get it, but there's no way he can beat Tyson Fury. There's no way. He can't win that fight.
Man,
No
with those
way.
boxing skills, he may be the best boxer in boxing.
Tyson Fury might be the best boxer in boxing, and he's 6'9", 260 pounds.
But I think he can crack a little bit better than Tyson Fury. Maybe it doesn't
Maybe,
translate to high heavyweight, but I mean, he has some serious like offensive boxing skills.
He won't
I think Tyson
touch.
Fury's got great defensive boxing skills. That's why I like him a lot.
He won't touch Fury's chin. He just won't touch him, and he would lose that fight. Deontay Wilder would knock Usyk out. That's a 6'3". I mean, Usyk would probably completely outbox him outside of that, but he's gonna hit a 6'3" heavyweight on the chin eventually, and he'll knock him out, just cold. And I think Luis Ortiz is way too big and probably just as skilled as him.
How tall is Ortiz?
Like maybe 6'4", 6'5", maybe 6'4", but he looks so much bigger than
his frame is huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But who's to say that Usyk
guy.
knowing that he doesn't have to cut down to 200 pounds, we won't really see how big he is now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Suppose he normally walks around at like 225. And he's like,
Yeah,
well, I
maybe.
normally walk around at 225 before I start my cut. I can get up to 230, 235. I think a 6'3", 235-pound Usyk with those type of boxing skills and that type of speed.
Yeah, I get why he's a threat. I just don't. How's he gonna beat a guy at 6'9" or a guy at 6'7", 6'8"? I even think Anthony
Man,
Joshua would beat him.
did
I
it
just
matter?
don't.
I know Mike Tyson is incomparable or whatever like that, but even Evander Holyfield wasn't the biggest guy we've ever seen. I think those guys would
No, but
still give these guys today a lot of hell.
so it's hard to tell because it was a different world. I mean,
How big was
Le-
Lennox Lewis?
Lennox Lewis was 6'5", and he was like, dude, he was like one of the tallest. I mean, Michael Grant, right, was 6'7", so he's as big as the guys
How
today,
big was David Tua?
like 5'10" or
You don't
something.
think he would knock? I think he would knock Deontay Wilder out.
Maybe like I'm totally with you, but I'm just saying like it's it's hard to imagine these guys because Vander Holyfield. I guess he fought Nikolai Valuev, so I guess he did fight
What
a
was he,
giant guy.
6'1"?
No, Nikolai Valuev
No, I'm
was
talking about
6'9",
Holyfield.
6'2", I think, something like that.
What
But
about Foreman?
6'4", and I mean Foreman was the biggest heavy. Foreman was Tyson Fury in the 70s. I mean, no, seriously,
I know.
like
It is funny
this
to
is
think about it, but still.
yeah. Lennox Lewis was a giant, and he's 6'5", and that's huge, obviously. But like 6'5" in the
Klitschko?
90s. Klitschko's 6'6", right? I think his brother was 6'7", or maybe even 6'8". Like everybody keeps getting bigger. That's my thing, and so it makes it hard, to because like we're like, yeah, other people have moved up from cruiserweight or light heavyweight, right? I mean, and Roy Jones won a title, and James Toney won a title, Michael Moore, Evander Holyfield, on and on and on. But it's like, dude, like the best heavyweight in the world wasn't 6'9" when those guys were doing it. You know,
And the second one was
like it's just
6'7", and then 6'6" Anthony
yeah,
Joshua.
it's
But
just
man,
different.
how big is Ruiz?
Yeah,
How
he's
tall
six
is he?
two. He's six
I
two.
not for sure think he can beat every single one of those guys. Yeah, but he also has a chance to get knocked out by every single one of those guys again.
So
But those type of speed, man, that hand speed is something ridiculous. And I think that, man, supposed to say Usyk won't be look that fast against heavyweights.
I think Andy Ruiz would get knocked out by Deontay Wilder and would lose every round to Tyson Fury. And I think Luis Ortiz would beat him too.
Wow.
And I thought he beat Joseph Parker. So I'm saying that I think he should probably be undefeated. I don't. He's a 6'2" heavyweight. Deontay Wilder will eventually hit him. Anthony Joshua hit him on the chin. Anthony Joshua knocked him down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deontay Wilder would eventually hit him and knock him out. Tyson Fury is as good of a boxer of him, if not better, and he's 6'9". Like it's not going to end well for Andy Ruiz. So I think Luis Ortiz is a better boxer too. I think it's more debatable, but I don't know. I think that it's like, yeah, a 6'2" heavyweight happened to knock out Anthony Joshua. I get it. I think anybody that hits Anthony Joshua on the chin has a chance to knock him out. So I kind of think that's what happened. I don't think that's a normal thing. I don't think Andy Ruiz is going to emerge as the undisputed heavyweight champion, and
No,
prove
just because
that short guys can do it in this era.
But yeah, that's just because the two guys at the top to me are you got one guy who's a freaking defensive wizard that's a boxer, then you got another guy with a missile of a right hand and can knock anybody out. But if those two guys weren't there, I don't see no reason why Andy Ruiz wouldn't be.
No, I agree. We just have a situation where Tyson Fury is maybe the best boxer in the world, and he's the size he is, and Deontay Wilder is David Tua if he was 6'7" with 87-inch reach. And I think David Tua probably would have been undefeated if he was 6'7" with an 87-inch reach. So,
What about Ruiz versus Usyk?
I would pick Ruiz if it was their next fight. if Usyk didn't have. I gotta see Usyk at heavyweight first. Another thing about Usyk is that Tony Bellew fight was close until he knocked him out. So
But that's
I
because
remember.
you always disrespecting Tony, man. I told you Bellew can freaking he can do a lot of stuff, man. I think he was extremely underrated. I think he caught wind of what he needed to be as a boxer in the later stages of his career.
I get it. I just think that there's some red flags with Usyk. I think that he's had some competitive fights, you know. I don't know. I don't buy it yet. I think he's a great boxer. I know he has a great amateur pedigree.
Was Tyson Fury ever in any competitive fights outside of Wilder?
No. Cunningham knocked him down, so maybe that one. But I don't think that's
Cunningham.
The former cruiserweight. So
Exactly.
but that was a long time ago too. And I don't know, man. I'm not buying Usyk yet. I'm just not.
All right, well, there you have it. The initial episode of the Top Billing Brand Boxing Podcast with my man Chris P. Swanson. All right, Swanson. I don't want to date this podcast, so we're not going to mention any of the fights coming up, just in case I'm not able to get it up right away. So I think it'll be evergreen content. If we're not talking about fights that'll be coming up, but the next one we'll have previewing or coming out and then into a preview of some really good fights. So we're not gonna say don't ruin it for us, man. But it's all good, man. But I appreciate talking boxing with you, man, and I can't wait to do it again.
Should be fun.
All right, y'all. There you have it. Top Billing Brand. Make sure you subscribe. Peace.